I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on.
It started to get that I just didn't even believe. And it was not a political stance, it wasn't an opinion, it wasn't.
Hi, I'm Red.
Hi, I'm Susan, and this is our friend Loretta, here to tell us about her road to atheism. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, in the beginning
was a Catholic girl in Catholic school in Brooklyn with Italian Catholic parents, with nuns. I think, isn't that like the general beginning of most atheists?
I believe that's where it probably would be. I wouldn't be surprised. The whole neighborhood
was Irish and Italian Catholic.
Wow, you're surrounded.
Yes, so
yeah.
we all went to the same school.
Same school,
yes.
Same church.
Same church, St. Joseph's Catholic School in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm.
Amen to that. Well, and when you were brought up, you went to church every Sunday?
Yes, I went to church.
You were in a cafeteria type Catholic. You were honestly full-blown Catholic.
Full-blown Catholic. We went to church every Sunday. Mm-hmm. My parents went to church. I think it was more of a social thing, and that they also wanted us to be raised Catholic because they were Italian, and I think it was more cultural. Mm-hmm. Because as time went on and we got older, they were not going as much.
Mm-hmm. But when you were young, were you told to say your prayers before you went to sleep?
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I think it was more like cultural training. Right. I didn't feel that my parents were like deeply religious.
Mm-hmm. The teachers in school, what kind of school did you go to? Parochial school?
Catholic parochial school.
Okay. And the training in that school, what years did you go up to what grade?
I went up till I was 13. I went from 1956 to 1964. And they were this was the old-fashioned nuns with the big
paddle.
Rosary with the paddle. They were very, they were pretty rough.
And the rosaries you had to read? And
the rosaries. And we had a lot of religious ceremonies, especially around Easter. We had to do like the Friday novenas and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Before Easter, we had to sit on that Good Friday. We had to sit in church like half the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you just go crazy.
And you were confirmed and
yes,
everything.
we were confirmed. We were baptized the whole 9 yards. Yes. And but with my family, it felt more like it was part of the cultural thing. Mm-hmm. My mother would be at home while the ceremony was going on, preparing the food.
Yes.
For the family.
So she didn't have to go to...
Yeah, I don't think it even dawned on it. Well, they were not... The one that it took the most, for some reason, is my sister, who is now an absolutely devout Catholic Republican. She lives in Florida. So, which seems to go together. It really caught on with her.
When did the doubt start creeping in?
I was about 15. And I was reading... The Source by James Michener.
Right.
Yes.
And they were having like the layers of this dig. And it started dawning on me like, oh, well then they had this religion. And then when the culture changed, it changed to this. And and I was young. I think I was about 15.
Different layers.
Different layers. And then the religion changed. And I started getting this idea like, duh, these people made this. Yes. Mm-hmm. But that was also separate from the idea of a belief in God. I started to realize first it came as religion was man-made. Mm-hmm. The actual religions were man-made from wherever and whenever people were born. So that's why they were different in other places.
You determined this.
I determined this. I was heavy duty reader. About 15 and 16.
About 15 and 16.
Yeah, I read a lot. Very good. And it started to dawn on me like, this is... There's a reason that people all the way over in the middle of like Asia have a different religion. This is how it developed. And that book started and I think that he didn't mean that when he wrote it. I think he had a deeply religious feeling about writing
Don't
this
know
book.
much about Mishnah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's important for our viewers to understand that if you want to know about these things or learn more about these, you have to read the books.
Yes.
There are many books out there, and that's the way you gain that knowledge.
Yes, I've read a lot and I've traveled a lot. And I remember in Rome, I think I was probably about 30, and we went to the catacombs of St.
Yes.
Callistus or St. Sebastian, and they had in this chapel, they had a statue, a reclining figure of St. Cecilia, a beautiful statue, and she's lying there, and her head is severed. And there was an old Italian man, he's telling this, what he's considering this beautiful spiritual story about how she, they said you have to deny your faith. She said, I'm not going to, the whole shtick. And so they decided to execute her, and they went to chop off her head, and it didn't come off. Then they only get 3 strikes. And so this is the story, and they went 2 more times. The head didn't come off. So she laid there. Then they tried to kill her by putting her in a hot bath. That didn't work. And then, no, the first thing was they put her in a hot water. God saved her. Then they did something else to her. God saved her. And then she had the 3-day ordeal of lying there with her head cut off. And I thought,
Amazing.
where was he now? At this late date.
Also sounds a lot like Rasputin or
He
somebody.
saved her, and then he left her there with her head half cut off. And the man that was telling it was all choked up, and my brain was always going like, this is really...
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Very sadistic.
Yeah, so things started, and I read a lot. I read
Yes.
and things,
So you were in your 30s when you really came out.
Yeah, I mean, it always was like sort of festering there, but the actual like...
Congealed in that, at
Yes.
that time. Right.
So I started realizing that I thought religion was... I mean, I loved it. I read everything about religion because I thought it was hysterical.
Right.
But the actual part of where it started to get that I just didn't even believe. And it was not a political stance. It wasn't an opinion. It wasn't it's just...
It just didn't feel right, didn't sit right, didn't
This
make
is
sense.
not... Yes, it was to me. It was like everybody spoke about God. He holds my hand. He's with me. And I thought it's like when you're a kid, you have an imaginary friend. And they would yell at you for having an imaginary friend. And this is the adults' version.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. The poor man's
But there was no one incident that really...
No, it just got...
Cumulative. Over the years, and it just congealed at that particular time.
Yes.
Right. That's that happens with a lot of us that way. Some at a younger age, some at an older age, but it eventually will happen when you do turn that you have to deal with something like this,
Yes.
and it's sort of like an epiphany. Epiphany, rather. It just hits you, and it says, "Wow, I can see that these things just don't make sense." Of course,
Right.
it doesn't.
Right.
What else? Any other events in your life?
Well, 27 years ago, I started going to AA, which is a wonderful organization.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to be in a very liberal, neighborhood and all.
New York?
Because they have, New York. But there is that whole thing of conscious contact, which I always thought, what are you talking about? Spiritual awakening. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do AA without having that. But, and it was fine with me. I didn't really mind, except I never mentioned anything because it is sort of not like people would frown upon it. But if you said, I don't believe in God, they'd go, I'll keep coming back. I'm like, no, it doesn't matter how much I come back.
That's right.
So for the first, I'd say about 15 to 20 years, I never mentioned anything about my atheism. I thought that's nobody's business. And then I started speaking out about it when there would be someone who would come in who was really in trouble, and they'd say, I need to get sober, but I don't believe in God. And so then I would share, like, this is fine. I mean, I have 20 years.
Aren't there now
Right.
something like AA, but without the...
There are actual AA groups all over the city.
But
Yes.
without the
But
need
without
for...
the religious part of it.
They have atheist AAs, humanist AAs. But, within AA, you can find your niche. But now it's more people, people are more, it's sort of like we were talking about the whole thing with people that are gay. People are more used to it. But some years back, I remember saying that I was an atheist, and then someone else raised their hand, and they did what's called crosstalk. You're not supposed to comment on someone's...
Yes.
And he said, I don't know how this woman, stays sober, without believing in God. It's not possible. Well, of course, I had like 20 years, and this guy had like 5 minutes. So, I said, but now it's a little more accepted. But I'm getting more sensitive. Even though it's more accepted, I'm more sensitive to a lot of the way people talk, because there seems to be a trend that some of I'd say the hipsters in AA, like they're all having spiritual awakenings night and day.
That is the undercurrent talk is spirituality.
It seems to be a thing that I noticed that's kind of happening, and like one woman was saying, so God said to me, sweetheart. He calls me sweetheart. I thought you need a psychiatrist because you're insane. And yet, in another way, it's more accepted to be an atheist as well. So there's both things going on. Like nobody bothers you for it. Nobody crosstalks you. But there is a little cultishness that goes on.
I always ask this question, and for some people, it is an underlying reason as to why they have turned. Anything as far as science or current events or anything that might have also helped to influence your thoughts?
Goodness. I mean, I read everything. You were talking about, reading and knowledge, and I have read, I tried to be religion. I tried all the things. I tried, different, going to Shivananda, Yoga Vedanta, and I tried, Buddhism and all, but nothing took. Yeah. And I finally said, I struggled. And then finally I just went, oh, you're an atheist. And it was almost like that was a spiritual awakening. Because it was, people say when they have a spiritual awakening, it's like a relief.
Right.
And I went, this was the opposite, but it was a relief. But I read everything. And one of the reasons I read everything is because I love I love Dawkins and all of those people. But sometimes if you say you're an atheist, people want to start questioning you about morality and they want you, it's almost like they believe in God, but they want you to prove that there isn't a God. And they say in all of these books, it's like, no.
It's not for you to prove.
It's not my.
It's for those who make the claim.
The prosecutor has to.
That's right.
Have you read Bart Ehrman?
No, but I'm going to write it down.
No, he writes, he analyzes. He's a biblical scholar who shows how the Bible was made and why. And he was an evangelical, and he went to college because he wanted to actually read the original words of the Bible as they originally were, in the original Aramaic, Greek, Hebrew, Latin, whatever. And
Aramaic.
He realized Aramaic, and he realized it's full of contradictions, and it really was a lot of nonsense.
It's a book that was written a long time ago by people in warring factions and tribes, and there was no medicine, there was no science, there was nothing, and yet we're supposed to say, even now, it's in the Bible. It's like, who cares? It's in the Bible. This thing is like
Bronze Age,
and there's nothing changeable. There's nothing that's going to grow from it. There's also, I learned the phrase, the God of the gaps, which I had never heard, and that's a good one because people say, well, if that they have that little, fill in that gap if the universe
used to be very big.
What caused the Big Bang?
But now,
the gaps have been narrowing because of science development has been getting smaller and smaller until there's almost no gaps. And that really frightens a lot of these.
That's
which is why they're trying to do away with science in schools.
Well, what's happening is that you're getting a number of the Pope, to give you a good example, is saying that their evolution is true, but it was God inspired. That's important because that shows they're transitioning, coming from the very religious background where it wasn't said to now leading in that direction because they know it's inevitable that science will close all the gaps in that.
And now he's saying that there is climate change and we have to do things.
That's right.
To help the planet. And of course, the American conservative Catholics, are now against the Pope because,
strange bedfellows. These things are happening. And in fact, you find a lot of the established religions, are against, are for the separation of church and state.
Right. You got to be careful when you talk about Catholics. You don't talk about strange bedfellows.
Bedfellows, right? Or little kids. Well, those things you have to be careful are true. But the thing is that's happening.
Yes.
You see, they want a separation because they don't want any particular religion or particular sect to dominate. And they don't want it to come to that in the future where there's going to be one religion and that suppresses all the others. So they're all cumulatively saying you've got to have a separation of church and state.
But I think that what people here are always like, talking about how in all of the Islamic countries they want to impose Sharia law, and that's wrong. But I think in America, the religious right wants to impose its own Sharia law.
They definitely.
Which they don't understand.
Especially regarding women.
Oh,
That's right.
And it the whole thing, I'm getting like more, I was always like very sort of tolerant.
Live and let live.
Live and let live. And now I'm just getting like.
Yeah, that's why I joined.
I'm really getting like very bored with it. And, my sister, who is just so devout and is worried, my sister is worried, sick about me. She's talked about this with friends of mine. She loves me to death. She's very worried.
That you won't go to heaven because
I'm going
of
to
your
hell.
viewpoints.
I'm going to hell. Yeah.
Well, we'll be there and we'll keep you company.
Yes, exactly. And it's sad because like she really believes this, and now she's starting to do Bible studies. And I said to her,
she should be Bart Ehrman.
Does she send you anything in the mail? Or
no, she knows
email?
better than that. But she said, I'm doing Bible studies. And I just went, why? I said, well, you're also studying the ancient myths, which is fine. I love the ancient. No, I mean, what are you looking for in this desiccated, dusty old book, that has... And,
over 740 contradictions and a lot of plagiarism.
It's getting really ugly. And then I saw someone in one of these, I don't know, she was a congresswoman in Texas, and she said the world is getting so violent, I think everyone should be mandated to go to church. We need more religion. And I thought, no, we need less. Less. She was she was a Texas.
Well, it figures. It's from Texas.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any good thing as Texans, but
we really need less religion.
That's right. That's
Definitely.
Right.
So,
that's
I'm getting
amazing.
kind of militant.
When you did come out, were your parents still alive?
Yes.
And what did
they didn't really seem to have much of a... Because I don't think they really were all that religious either. It was more a cultural thing.
And I know your sister is deeply religious. Do you have other siblings?
No,
so
just the one
two.
sister. And she was the one that when my father died, or we had to rush him to the hospital, and he was already gone. But I was calling her. She was in Florida. She said, I know you're an atheist, but Dad was a Catholic. Can you get him a priest? I said, absolutely. In the hospital, I said, I'm going to go, and I'm going to, and I asked them, and they said, well, we don't have a Catholic priest. It was a female Unitarian minister. And I said, fine. And then she was a really sweet lady. And she actually is very helpful because she just was a really sweet lady. And she was just a really sweet lady. And my father had just died in front of us. And she was very kind to us. And my mother, she comforted my mother. She was very good. And so then I called my sister and I said, yes, we had, she wasn't Catholic, she was Protestant. She said, oh my God, Daddy's going to go to hell.
Oh, my word.
And, of course she was grieving.
Word.
I mean, she just heard that her father, but I said, Mariana.
Isn't that amazing?
I don't think he's going to be sitting next to Jeffrey Dahmer and Adolf Hitler. Little Dad, little Dad is really not going to hell. I said, even if there is one, I don't think that,
that's good.
And if that's the way this religion is, I said, you really better, get rid of it at this point. It's not very nice.
You're the one with common sense. And that must have been amazing when you heard her say something like that.
Yes. I mean, I understood, that she is religious. And, she just heard that her father died all of a sudden and she was freaking out. But it was such a reaction that they are so based in another fantasy world.
Yes.
When you're
Does
here.
she live in the area?
She what?
Miami.
She lives in Florida, in Tampa.
Oh, Tampa.
Okay, that's a very religious area.
Yes.
I recall also you mentioning earlier that you took care of your mother, and she was astonished.
Yes.
You actually took care of your mother?
Not that I actually, but she said that she knew I would take care of her, but that she said you were very gentle with her, you were very kind. I said, well...
Even atheists can be gentle.
Yes. I mean, you don't
just... Was your mother living up here?
Yes, my mother lived in my neighborhood in Park Slope.
Now, did your sister ever come up and...
Yes, she did. I mean, she's a wonderful person. I'm telling you. It's just that she's very religious and she's very intelligent, but it seems that the religious part of her makes part of her stupid.
Did she pray for your mother while she was ill?
Yes.
What happened when it didn't work?
They don't see it that way.
What do they think? You're going to
God works in mysterious
God works in
ways.
mysterious ways,
right.
and she's in a better place. And
That's a better place than Long Island?
yeah, but I was just saying before we started filming that one thing that shocked me the most was when there was a woman being interviewed on television. She had survived the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
She was in one of those little pockets
Yeah.
with a bunch of firemen, and they were protecting her, and they were wonderful to her. And after they all got out, she went to visit them at the fire department, and they had a dinner, and she hugged them and kissed them. It was very sweet. And the interviewer was saying, well, how do you feel about your experience? And she said, God loves us. My first thought was, what? He hated the other 2,000 people.
Isn't that something?
Hated them. I mean, it was such an odd.
Let me give you, I hope you can hear this on the TV. Let me give you an experience. One of my interests, as you can see in the apartment, I'm interested in fire department.
Yes.
And we were doing street tabling up at Columbus Circle. And the fire engines used to come by all the time and notice it. And anyway, one day this guy comes up, very good looking guy, looked like he was a Hollywood extra. And he came up to me and he said, I feel blessed. And I said to him, why do you feel
They
blessed?
do that on purpose, too.
I was one of the people that was pulled out of the ruins of the World Trade Center. And I let God save me. And I said to him, I mentioned the name of an individual from the fire department who was considered the top guy in the department. Someday he would have been chief. And I said, I'll just use his first name, Terry. I said, you're telling me that God saved you and let Terry die? And the guy starts crying. And I said, what's the problem? He says, he was my mentor. He said, I am an atheist. You just turned me. Because I got him to show almost the same thing you mentioned. Why did he save me and not somebody else? And not the mysterious ways, okay?
Right.
And so sometimes you have to really jolt these people to say, why you? You know, that type of situation.
Yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
And there's no better place, okay? The best place is here and now,
Yes.
okay? Because don't forget, there's only going to be 144,000 of you
Raptured
may go to heaven. No animals.
That's
just
right.
you.
That's right.
How about all these other people?
Yes.
Okay?
And that's a biblical saying. That.
Well, one of the worst things was that when they told us in school, when we were in Catholic school, we all were asking, like, about our pets.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And they said, no, they don't
We
go to
have
heaven
atheists
because
now
they don't
that
have a
are
soul.
business.
That was the beginning of the end.
We have atheists have a business. We offer perpetual care
That's
to
right.
religious people for their pets.
Right.
If they're raptured up.
But
If they're raptured.
that is true. And in fact, Campbell, I believe his name was Campus, or the individual who was the last one to say that there is going to be a rapture.
Yeah.
And it did not turn out that.
Yes.
He said it.
Yes.
He said it 3 times, but the last time he said it was the one where a lot of people gave all their animals to different people who are not going to be raptured.
Right, who are not going to be
Isn't that
raptured.
something? And they made money on that, as well as he made money by
Yes.
millions. Believe it or not.
Yes.
Oh, they're so gullible. It's so sad.
That's the point. That's the key. Is that that people are so gullible in their ways that they'll do anything, and people will make money off of them because of their ignorance or their naivete. I'll put it that way.
Well, one of the times that there was going to be a rapture, it was going to be the next day, and I was in Miami with some friends, and I was deciding, should I have the second piece of key lime pie?
No, we always have dessert first.
Yes. Well, I said, maybe I should, because what if the rapture is tomorrow? I might as well have the second. But if it isn't, then I'm going to, gain weight. So, but he changed, when it didn't happen, he changed the date.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is happening.
Who was it? Miller in the 19th century.
He did not change the date. He said
Right.
he made a
That's another one.
miscalculation.
He made a miscalculation.
They always say that.
Yes.
It's happened so often in the
Yes.
past. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And you should see the people at Union Square when it was last. And for those in Manhattan, they know
really?
Union Square. They had signs. Hell, the day is coming. Rapture is coming. You better get to the church. You better pray, et cetera, et cetera. There were a number of them, a plethora of them all around Union Square. And after that date, you didn't see any of them around there.
Yeah.
No one. And then that was amazing. I said, gee, I wish I could see their faces. I'd love to talk to them now.
Yeah.
About that. But unfortunately,
they're hiding until somebody else prophesizes that such and such a date.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, I don't
People
get that
think
fascination
in that type
with-
of dimension, So tell me something. Your you attend, you're a member of the New York City Atheists organization.
I just joined, yes.
Mm-hmm. And could you tell us a little about your experience with the organization? What do you think of it?
Oh, I just joined and really just came to two things. One of them was the
David Madison.
David Madison. Yes, I loved that. And then the brunch, which I loved. It was delicious.
I hope all of you in the audience hear that.
It was a really good brunch, but that's about it so far. And then this. So,
you're going to find there's a lot more. We have the monthly meetings. We have a lot of meetups. And
food,
another thing,
snacks.
another thing, as much as they would think that the devil is in us for some reason, we are very giving. We're going to have a blood drive coming up.
Right.
Ken, would you like to talk
on
about
the
that?
first
6th of May or something?
The first
Prayer
Thursday
Day.
of the month of May.
Yeah, the day of prayer.
They now have a proclamation where they have a National Day of Prayer. And so we do something a little different as atheists. What we do is we give blood. We're trying to contaminate the blood with atheist DNA cells.
There you go.
And we try to show the difference. They pray, and we use science to show how they pray. And we do that twice a year. We do that usually.
Wonderful.
Well, we do it on the first Thursday of May, and usually around Election Day. And we do that too.
Okay.
Right.
That sounds great.
So that's what we do, and we'd love for you to, stay with us.
I will.
And we usually sometimes we have summer outings and get-togethers of that type of nature.
Oh,
July 4th.
And Halloween Day Parade.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And one of our members gives a Halloween party.
And
Okay.
New
A lot
Year's
of
Eve.
fun.
That's
And
right.
New
New Year's Eve and New Year's
Do
Eve.
you dress
That's
as
right.
various saints,
dress as
religious
monks.
figures, dressed as monks?
Yes. So if you were to have something to say to the audience that you want to leave them with a thought, maybe one of getting off of the fence, proverbial fence, or
Out of the closet.
out of the closet, as it were, what would you like to give us as far as a message?
Just say it. And be brave and just say it. I tried not to say it. I kept pussyfooting around it. I'm an agnostic and all. And then one day I just thought, no. And I say it, and like the earth doesn't fall in, and people get a little taken aback. But, I do live in New York.
Yes.
I'm waiting till I go visit someone in Texas and see how's that working
Or have
for
you visited your sister down in Tampa?
I visit her all the time, and I just say it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it comes up, I don't just sit there going, I'm an atheist, I'm an
You're
atheist.
going to wear
but,
a T-shirt.
yes, I should.
I'll get one of my T-shirts for her.
Oh, wait, are there T-shirts?
There are many T-shirts.
I will have to get
Yes,
a
there are.
T-shirt.
Or
I'm going to get a
hats.
T-shirt.
You're going to get one of your hats.
That's right.
Yes,
I need to get a hat.
you weren't there at the brunch.
Oh, I was at the last. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I'm thrilled. This is so exciting. I get a hat. Can I have this?
Yeah.
That's yours.
Oh, I'm
How many
delighted.
would you like?
Huh?
How many would you like?
Well, one is good. That's all I need.
We have shirts. I have one shirt that a lot of people in science like. It says, "Science flies men to the moon, and religion flies men into buildings."
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have a lot of shirts like that. But you call us at New York City Atheists. We'll be glad to tell you more about that.
Okay.
Well, we want to thank you very much for
Thank
your
you
thoughts
very much.
and your ideas and your
Thank
jokes.
you.